What's up, everyone? I'm Christopher Wade, and my project is called, next slide, please, The Will of Monsters. Next slide. So, what the hell is this thing? What is The Will of Monsters? Well, The Will of Monsters, or TWAM, is a young adult action adventure fantasy film. This 45-minute film is for all tweens and adults who love those big, fat, explosive fantasy stories with beautiful worlds of wizardry and exciting, diverse teams of characters. This story is for all those craving something fresh and engaging from the fantasy genre. Next slide, please. So here's the rundown. Two scarecrows, Gerard Ironstride and his apprentice Cham, they're investigating the cause of a decimated farm. But they're suddenly attacked by a powerful, gigantic beast. They get saved after running into an eager young witch named Pi, whose people tends to subjugate scarecrows and other so-called monsters. But their uneasy alliance exposes the tension between their races. Next slide. But when the gigantic beast reappears and prepares to kill them, can this unlikely trio work together to defeat the creature? Well, we're going to find out. Next slide, please. So let's talk about the characters real quick. This is Gerard. He is the leader of the group, the closest I can call an elder millennial. So he's very tired, but also very ready for battle. He's the noble and skilled adventurer who takes pride in thrilling fights, yet he's wisely cautious of the dangers that come with defeat. Gerard is very quick in protecting those closest to him, no matter what it may cost to do so. Next slide. And this is Cham. He's a smart mouth, affable rookie, and he's also easily startled by the ferocity of the wilderness. He's just a little guy, and this is like his first time actually training out here. But if Cham finds the resolve to protect his allies, can this small boy win against the beasts of battle? Next slide. And lastly, we have Pi. She's an aimless, silly girl felled from the sky and thrown into a path that will change her life forever. Accompanied by Raspberry, her enchanted silkworm, Pi must learn magic in order to survive. But what price is this young witch willing to pay for such power? Next slide. So, I suppose a lot of you guys must be thinking, okay, so Chris, you've got these scarecrows and these witches, and they're getting into like these weird JRPG fights. What is this world? Well, this is the world of Valpurgisnacht. It is a land once called Earth, now inhabited by beings and creatures of great ability. It's a planet reshaped by fearsome gods that have been forgotten, that are now dead, or waiting to be reborn. Valpurgisnacht is a mystical world where two nations reside. There's the first, the Starlight Empire, a massive imperial nation of individuals who command immense power over nature. They think they're hot shit, so they call themselves God's chosen people. These beings also refer to themselves as witches. And then we have the Lorefolk Forge. It's a large country of highly diverse people with superhuman or animal like characteristics. They are the minority class of this world, and these people are commonly referred to as monsters. Next slide, please. So let's talk about the film's setting. Uh, this film takes place at Milestone Acres. It's a plot of farmland that sits next to a forested mountain range. It's usually pretty lively here, but for some reason, the land is quickly becoming a withering husk. What's worse is that all those who have come to investigate, they haven't been coming back alive. If there's something dangerous out here that is still around, it may in fact be on a mission of its own. Next slide, please. So these are my inspirations, and I want everybody in the chat to ask themselves this: what is the common thread between all these shows and these games and these movies? What is the one thing that seems to bind them together? And you could say, oh, it's magic, right? You talked about fantasy. You talked how about the color palettes? Like they're all bright and very orangey and inviting, and all that's valid. I would say personally that the one thing that defines all of these images here is the spirit of adventure. When I was growing up, I loved games like Final Fantasy 9 and 10 and 10-2 and all that. There are some really great JRPGs out there right now, like Bravely Default. And I was even growing up with the old Pokemon series, and I'm even like finding really cool cartoons these days. Cartoons like the melancholic masterpiece that is Over the Garden Wall. There's so much adventure uh, out in the fantasy genre, and I want to I want to kind of bring back that energy that we used to see in these games and bring it into this story. Next slide, please. But I also would like you guys to be a part of this story. One way to do that is by following us at Will of Monsters on Twitter and on Tumblr. You can share what you think of our pitch online, and you can hit us up for questions too. I I wouldn't mind seeing some witch OCs and some scarecrows OCs as well. Use the hashtag the Will of Monsters while you're doing it, and you might get something cool out of it. I would also stress you could get involved with the indie animation community as a whole. Supporting creators directly, fighting for fair wages and benefits in the animation industry as a whole. This also means calling out studios that take advantage of artists, on studios that also cancel their work way before their prime. We're seeing a lot of that now. But your support on social media, financially, emotionally, that means so much, not only to my project, but to other people's projects as well. Next slide, please. So, the goals and philosophy of TWAM, uh, we're our goal is to touch on themes of prejudice and purpose and accountability. There's a lot of fantasy stories out there that focus on one specific character who they see themselves as the main character, or even the overall narrative says you're the chosen one and you're going to help us all and save this world because the story demands it. And the character believes this, not recognizing that there are other people in the world that have problems that are even worse than what the main character is facing. And it's not just up to the narrative to just say that main character is the best because we're going to give them all the attention. That's not how the world works. And I really want to hone in on that. So just like our peers, we aim to have a strong message and to tell a great story that can also be profitable. We're, this story is currently coming out of my own pocket, just like a lot of people here. So we plan to focus our upcoming crowdfunding campaign around getting a lot of the rough animation done, as well as some of the music. If the finished film is successful enough, we aim to make a long form series to explore the film's world and continue our trio story as well. We plan to make a great story with healthy deadlines while treating and paying artists well. We can't change the entire industry as a whole, but maybe we can provide a good example for other productions in the future. Next slide. And that is the end of my presentation. I want to thank you guys for supporting and for supporting this story. Please continue to support indie animation as a whole. It means a lot to all of us, not just on Twitter and Tumblr or what have you, but also with your words and your deeds and your dollars. That makes our productions run a lot smoother. Again, you can find the Will of Monsters on Twitter and on Tumblr. We have the I want to say the link right there in front of us, and our Patreon as of today is now completely accessible for only $1. So not only will you get behind the scenes footage of all the work that we've been doing, you'll also be able to access a lot of the lore that we've been developing, a lot of the other races and characters that we've created as well. And with that, I turn it back to our very gracious host. Thank you guys.
All right.
Woo! All
Thank you
right.
to
Great
Chris.
job, Chris.